For author John Kennedy Toole, his life truly was akin to his central character / protagonist Ignatius J Riley. He shared the same mindset that his failings in life were of the work of some higher power, and that he sadly didn't belong in the world. He ended his life more than a decade before Dantes was ultimately published and had received the posthumous Pulitzer Prize in 1981. Obviously afterwards, Hollywood came calling. Harold Ramis, the genius writer-actor behind a certain beloved franchise that was just about to take off, signed on to write and direct an adaptation on Riley's adventures in the French Quarter of New Orleans. He brought along his friends John Belushi and Richard Pryor. But after Belushi's untimely death, the project was scrapped. Later on in the mid-90s, John Candy and Chris Farley were at different times attached for the Riley role. Sadly, both of them died young, and the project was shelved up until the early 2000s, when, just off his Oscar-winning directorial effort, Steven Soderbergh adapted the screenplay and set it up for famed director David Gordon Green to direct. The adaptation was set to star Will Ferrell, Lily Tomlin, Paul Rudd, and Jesse Eisenberg. For various reasons, however, the project never commenced production, and when asked about the project years later, Soderbergh exclaimed, "I think the film is cursed. I'm not prone to superstition, but that project has got some bad mojo on it." Will Ferrell has also said, when asked about the film's cancellation, that it was a mystery. In 2015, Nick Offerman starred in the Riley role for the Huntington Theater Company stage version in Boston, Massachusetts. The adaptation set a record as the company's highest-grossing production. For 25 years, journalist and author Harrison Salisbury put together a book that chronicled one of the deadliest sieges in World War II between the Russians and the Nazis. Over 3 million were involved, and just under half of them were killed in Leningrad during the 900-day-long siege. Master Italian filmmaker Sergio Leone was in awe of the book after just completing the film Once Upon a Time in America in 1982. Although there was no formal script written, Leone had sketched out exactly how he was to visually orchestrate the opening battle scene. Starting from the Russians' perspective, who were helplessly bombarded by artillery fire, and then panning over a few hundred feet to show the German Reich. It was to be a war epic beyond anything he had ever shot before. He had raised $100 million for the production budget, which was to be one of the most expensive of all time. Leone had wanted the film to be from the point of view of an American photographer. The photographer role was to be filled by Robert De Niro, who then falls for a Russian woman, even though it was at the time forbidden to be romantically involved with a foreigner. Leone didn't just want to make a war or political film, but a love story set in this war-torn hell of a city. But just 2 days before Leone was to officially sign on for the film, he died of a massive heart attack. Several attempts had been made to resurrect the project, but to no avail. Miguel de Cervantes' novel, Don Quixote, the famous Hidalgo who attempted to revive chivalry and bring justice to the world, is considered one of the best literary works of all time. So, naturally, legendary filmmakers like Orson Welles and Peter Yates have all taken a shot at bringing the character to the silver screen. Welles' attempt, however, was met with great disdain since he couldn't finish the project. But the most infamous attempt would have to belong to Terry Gilliam's version of the fictional literary subject back in 1998. Gilliam and Tony Grisoni wrote a script based loosely on the book and were able to raise $32 million for the production budget. Gilliam tapped Jean Rochefort to play the lead and Johnny Depp to play a large supporting role in the film. Production commenced in an area near Madrid, Spain, in September 2000. After Depp and Rochefort shot a few scenes, the first problem that occurred was the military base near the production site started deploying jets, and excessive flyover noise became a common burden. On the second day, a flash flood washed away equipment and actually changed the color of the canyons that were used as backdrops for previous scenes. All the footage that was shot prior to the flood became useless. After it was discovered that Rochefort was diagnosed with a double herniated disc, production was abruptly cancelled. A documentary in 2002 was released, which highlighted the major events that led to the film's cancellation. Depp has claimed that he won't make room in his busy schedule for the film, noting he doesn't want to go through the experience again. After a few revival attempts by Gilliam in getting the production back on track, it was announced in June 2015 that Amazon Studios would release the film theatrically and then available for all of their Prime streaming customers. John Hurt had come on board to portray the Hidalgo, and filming was set to begin in early 2016, but in September 2015, Hurt was diagnosed with cancer, which suspended the project once again. This Terry Gilliam adaptation has been officially dubbed the film that doesn't want to be made.
Jesus.
– We all know director Quentin Tarantino, from such film classics Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and Django Unchained, is an aficionado for violent cinema. There's no question that this guy can write kick-ass dialogue and direct some majestic violent scenes. But back when he was a budding 24-year-old filmmaker, he didn't have a whole lot of cash to butcher 88 crazy-suited honchos. He mainly had to stick to the written word, which usually included Elvis quotes and bathroom humor.
Funny, I feel like diarrhea. Feels like a bunch of little guys are in my stomach with pointy sticks going, ay, 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 ay.
Working in the now defunct video archives in Manhattan Beach, California, him and his co-worker Craig Heyman expanded on a short 30 to 40 page script about a young man who continually tries to do something nice for his friend's birthday, only to have his efforts backfire. It was gritty, but not Kill Bill gritty. Stark, black and white 16mm imagery gritty. After shooting off and on for 4 years, they finally completed the film, but a fire in the film processing lab, which destroyed half of the completed work, cemented this film from ever seeing the light of day. You can now watch snippets of the film and read the feature-length script online. Don't feel too bad for the director though, as his directorial effort 5 years later memorialized his stature as one of Hollywood's greatest directors.
Hard part's over.
Master filmmaker Stanley Kubrick's grandiose vision for the legendary Emperor was to hire over 50,000 soldiers and shoot a large portion of the film in France. Kubrick spent years hiring dozens of research assistants and culminating a trove of research and pre-production material. Kubrick called Napoleon the most interesting man to have ever walked the earth, and also called his life an epic poem of action. After the success of 2001: A Space Odyssey, he actually sent an assistant around the world to literally follow in Napoleon's footsteps. Initially wanting Al Pacino to play the Emperor, he knew he had to convince the studio to back his costly endeavor. He scoured the globe and persuaded the Romanian army to offer their fleet of 40,000 soldiers for $2 a head. He also would save money by utilizing uniforms made of a paper material, which can withstand 300 pounds of pressure for just a few dollars each. Ultimately, the studios weren't convinced enough and put the project in turnaround. Until the day he died, he wanted his vision of the military leader's life come to fruition. In 2011, the materials he gathered while in pre-production were put into a 1,000-plus page book, which also includes a screenplay. In 2013, Steven Spielberg, in conjunction with the Kubrick estate, announced his plans to produce a Napoleon miniseries based off of Kubrick's extensive notes. There has been no movement on the project as of this writing.